Welcome to the RecWired podcast. Today we've got a very special guest. We've got Victoria Sprott, who is our latest NED addition to the RecWired network. Welcome, Victoria.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much.
So thanks for coming on board. For those who don't know you or haven't come across you, tell us a little bit about yourself. I guess, what have you been doing for the last 20 odd years at a large recruitment company?
Yeah, so I did. I had a fantastic career at Robert Half for 27 years. I started as a fairly average consultant, having had sold encyclopedias in Australia and sold house insurance and car insurance, and I had a very traditional, I suppose, corporate career with Robert Half, and it was at a time where the company was expanding. So I launched divisions and launched offices, and did that for about 15, 16 years, running multiple sales teams. And then I reached a junction in my life where things changed, and I suddenly found myself married to somebody in recruitment, obviously, 3 kids, house, everything. And whilst really committed to recruitment as an industry, I just needed something a little different at that stage. And so I set up the first talent acquisition function for Robert Half.
Oh, wow.
And then did learning and development, and had done that for the last sort of 15 years, and took that across what was called the international zone, so all countries sitting outside of the US. So yeah, I've seen both sides of the fence.
So one of the interesting things is that our audience are generally have a complete different range of career length. I think that's the politically correct way of saying it. So we might actually have to explain what an encyclopedia is. Effectively, it's the World Wide Web in about 30 books.
Exactly.
And you used to go and pitch basically people's grandparents so that they would hope that their children would read all of these things, or if they didn't know something, would go and look it up. And that was there.
And the funny thing, so I did this in Australia for about 2.5 years, door knocking. I mean, it was like proper, hardcore.
Door sales is such a great entry for recruitment.
Well, it certainly produces, gives you a pretty thick skin by the end of it, because I was competing against other people who knocked at the doors, and none of us were really very well received in any way. So yeah, it was a very good grounding for resilience and grit. And when you and we had like a demo book which had thousands of pictures in it, and it was all really cool. But what they didn't know is, like, really all the pretty pictures were in that one demo book, and actually the rest of the encyclopedia set probably only had 1 or 2 pictures in the whole set. So it was probably not the most ethical way that I would say that we sold education, but it was good grounding.
Recruitment's such an ethical business. So how did you, how did you get in? And you went straight to Half. So you started as a trainee there, or?
No, so I came back from Australia. I worked for Ensley Insurance, the student insurer, for about 3 or 4 years. Because
another hard grounding. Surprising students.
School of hard knocks, and then I met my now husband, and there was a funny moment when I was still working at Ensley, and he asked me to get some money out of the cash point, and we were fairly new in our relationship, and I pressed balance when he asked me to get some cash out, and I saw his balance and thought, that's interesting. So I got back in the car and went, what is it that you really do? And he talked to me about recruitment, and through various other networks, and I ended up joining Robert Half. So
I won't ask what the balance is, but
no.
I'd imagine it was quite.
It was all right.
It was all right at the time. So what's interesting for me is, obviously I did 20 years at S3. Obviously didn't do didn't make it to the full 27. But what's really interesting is the businesses that have spawned out of the entrepreneurs that have left S3, have left Hayes, have left. And Half's another great example of that. So what was the secret sauce there?
So I think what Robert Half did is it recruited really, really good people whose values were very aligned with the company. So the culture was really, really strong. But I think the resounding thing is that the standard of expectation never ever moved, really, through high days, low days, economy changes. The standard was the standard, and there were so many people that achieved that standard regardless of what the economy was doing. It just made everybody believe that things were possible, and you were really supported, high levels of training, coaching, and all the leaders, and it is similar in other companies, but all the leaders were born from being a consultant. So we very, rightly or wrongly, very rarely did anybody ever come in at a director level that hadn't gone through the ranks. And from that, there's a lot of credibility that I think comes from that. And it's certainly tough, but well balanced with the support and the rewards that came from that. So yeah, it was. I would say it would be the standard, really.
I think those fierce cultures are both a blessing and a curse sometimes. I remember we hired a business developer at Computer Futures, and he had the temerity to eat his lunch at 2:00 or something like that, and that was it. He was done. It was like everyone had just sort of seen this heresy that no, you have lunch between 1 or 2, and we don't do that. If you're eating lunch, you're a slacker. There we go. So those strong cultures. Did Robert Half ever acquire anyone?
Nope.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that probably the culture is so strong that actually, if you did go to acquire, and I remember speaking to Giles, Walter's acquisitions, he basically said that the culture was so strong that there was 1 out of the 3 they did was relatively successful, but the other 2 just weren't great because their culture was so strong that they would just kill whatever they brought in.
Yeah, definitely. I don't even know if they looked at any acquisitions, but no, I mean, that's one of the US, USPs of the company, is the fact that it's all been organic growth from that success.
So one of the conversations I have quite often is people coming out of long careers. So I've had a couple this week already of people, one who's sort of out and one who's about to become out and be announced, but they've been at these big organizations with these big, strong cultures for, 15, 20, 25 years. And it's that whole, okay, where do I start? Where do I go? How is it for you?
So it's been I've learned more about myself over the last couple of months than I probably have done in the last 25 years. It is tricky when you come out, and my husband and I were talking a few years ago of very often when people come out of a very strong culture and they've been there a long time, their first move is always a disaster because the comparison to what they've come from and what they're going to, they haven't got that realistic expectation that it's going to be different. And so when I left in May, I definitely think that my personal recommendation is you've got to take some time out to, I think the word is decompress, I've been told, but you actually just need to take a bit of time out to get out of the system. My husband has remained at Robert Half, so the kind of the separation perhaps sometimes has been more challenging because obviously we talk about Robert Half, positively and what's happening in his business all the time. So I still feel slightly connected, but also I think it's made me quickly, get on with it because he has remained at the company. So my first advice would be, if they can, to take some time out. And then the network for me has been, people always talk about, use your network, you've got a network, but I didn't really understand quite how powerful it is and how much people want to help you. So I just spent the first 6 weeks, I didn't do any business development. I just phoned up people, talked to people, got advice from people who'd made similar transitions. And actually, I probably had 30, 40 conversations before I even worked out what do I want to do. I mean, beyond the concept of what I wanted to do. And throughout those conversations, it then fell into like 3 or 4 different common themes. And then from that, I was like, okay, right, now I'm ready. to kind of go to market. So I would definitely encourage people not to kind of react quickly. And my plan is changed again. It's been edited, but I've had the encouragement from people that that's the right thing. You know, don't be so set on exactly what you want to do, because until you're in your market, you don't actually know what your customers really want.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice to anyone sort of coming out. Again, I got given that advice, and I was super lucky that, you know, I had a number of people who'd sort of left before me, who were happy, but also as well a load of people that were just from a different perspective. They're either from a different recruitment company, or they were vendors, or, you know, and you know, that common theme of, look, just take your time. I think Tim Cook said you were massively overpaid at S3, but pretty much you will be valuable somewhere. You've just got to work out your value. So I'm like, thanks, Tim, for the confidence. But also as well, I mean, I think there was a certain interest. I mean, there's a certain aura around Half. There's an aura around S3. There's, you know, and people are actually interested, but you've probably got a year or two of people being interested in what you did to being interested in you. And it was, you know, you've got to make that jump quite quickly to work out, you know, it's you. I think, you know, the other thing for me was that sort of imposter syndrome. It's a bit like, am I going to be okay without this big, you know, people were nice to me when you were buying on behalf of a 3,000 person company. Are people still going to, you know, take my calls, you know, reply to me, and actually, you know, most did, but you find out quite quickly who was nice to you because you were there, and who was just playing the game.
That imposter syndrome, I mean, I know I've always had it, and you deal with it, but it has never ever been so prevalent and present than in the last couple of months. And you're absolutely right. Although you know that you've done it before, because you haven't got the backing of the brand. I mean, even something as simple, one of the biggest obstacles I've found is having a social voice on my own. So I'm kind of pretty comfortable in talking to customers, or talking, put a proposal, or doing a pitch, or coaching, or leadership training, or whatever it is that I'm doing. But actually putting your words online, and because I spend my entire time comparing myself to others. And that's the other thing that I've learned, and I'm not there yet. It's like, stop comparing yourself to others. Just, you've got to be you. You can't. And I tried to do posts that like other people, and then thinking, that's not me. I can't do that. And if they met me, they would have a difference of opinion from the person that you're presenting online. So that's still definitely a work in progress. But you just got to, again, advice is like, just get it out there. Stop worrying about the number of likes. That's what you teenagers do. At 54, really, don't worry about it. Just have a voice.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I mean, the business media is one of those, for my advisories, it's one of those classics: do as I say, not do as I do. And I know what I need to do. I know I need to be disciplined. I know I need to post. But what I tend to find is, I can put a meme or something funny or something, and get tens of thousands of impressions. The stuff I think that people probably most value is the stuff that's niche to me. So the thing, and actually that bit's good, because people then look at who you are, and it keeps you sort of broad. But people are going to buy into where you can make a difference to their business. And if they want, go and watch Ricky Gervais if you want to have a laugh. But there's the stuff around contracts, the stuff around growth, is internationalization. That's where I think I add the most, and I probably just need to do a little bit more of that. But I also, and again, it comes down to this imposter syndrome. I don't want to bother people. I'd hate to be sat there and thinking, oh, Andy's posted again. And it's the classic. It's almost like classic recruiter. What recruiters do is, the moment they make a placement with a customer, they stick them to do not mail shot, because they'd rather not send them anything than send them something that was slightly wrong. And it's crazy. It's like the equivalent of Tesco's banning you from the shop once you've bought something. So
that's so true.
But I do agree with you, and my advice, as opposed to what I do, stop being hypocritical, Andy, is that it's better to do lots of 8 and 9 out of 10s than a few 10 out of 10s, because certain content lands differently with different people. Some people, very much into the videos, some just post, some like the memes or the pictures, whatever. But I found that my network has been amazing since I left.
Well, I think all the clients that I'm dealing with now, and all the proposals that I've got out, and all the meetings I've had, they've all come from the network, which is I feel really privileged that that's happened. So I know it won't last forever, and maybe it's just because I'm at the beginning, people are helping. But I do a session called Sphere of Influence, which is like really how when you're in recruitment, how do you take where you've got a trusted relationship, and how do you optimize that through different mechanisms? And really, I suppose that what I'm doing is just trying to replicate what I teach, and do it for myself. But it's been very, very powerful. I feel very grateful to all of you out there that have supported.
Yeah, and typically, what will happen is you work out, you'll do a bit, you work out this didn't quite work, and then you iterate, and then you get something that's very, very much. I mean, I think really good bit of advice I had actually from Victoria Maloney, when she was out consulting. I think she was probably a year and a half, maybe 2 ahead of me, in terms of leaving, and literally I was really worried. I'm like, is anyone going to hire me? She's like, absolutely no problem. People will hire you. And I'm like, well, and they'll pay you this and they'll do this. However, only take on what you're really good at. And it's a real lesson that stuck with me, because if you do things that are outside your sphere, you lose credibility, but also you get really good at doing stuff, you get better at doing stuff that someone else is even better at. So, and that's why we've really, myself, Dalton, Charlotte, we've looked to open up the network to all sorts of different advisors, because they bring so much different. And I think, if you're going on this recruitment journey, having almost a panel of advisors and advisors for different things at different times is super useful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing, just following on from what you said, is, well, when you say don't do things that you're not really good at, but also I think for those who've got lots and lots of experience over multiple period of years, you end up being able to do a huge portfolio of things. Like, I could do outplacement, I could do this, I could do that, I could do the other. But actually kind of the go-to-market strategy it's like counterintuitive to what you feel. You feel like you want to go, I can do all of these things. But actually what you want to do is make yourself really, really niche, and go to that target market, and trust the fact that people outside of that will use you by reputation, but go niche to begin with, and your reputation will then proceed, as opposed to being all things to all men and then not delivering.
I think the thing I've enjoyed most is actually being listened to. And that's going to sound really, really strange, but you can't be a preacher in your own town. And, I'd go into meetings at S3, I'd say things, it's like, and it was almost like, but because it was an outside consultant coming in, or, we hadn't paid someone, super amounts of money to come in and do a study. And it was almost like you couldn't have internal sort of thinking. I don't know if you've come across that yet.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I would definitely agree to that. And maybe it's because you're your own person. You are genuinely, authentically you. So I don't know if it's a perception that we had in our head, coming back to that imposter syndrome, because you're representing an organization as opposed to representing yourself. So it would be interesting to talk to clients that saw us on both sides, and whether or not there's a common, whether they see it differently, or whether it's just in our head. I don't know.
What's your take on the market at the moment? So you're obviously in the big wide world now, and you're speaking to, I guess, small recruitment agencies, scale ups, and probably the big guys as well. What are you seeing out there?
So, I mean, I'm probably not going to say anything different than people already know, but my perception so far is that the news and the reality of the economy is different. So the news is super negative, and actually in the thick of the businesses, they're doing well. It's definitely harder. And I think the biggest transition, there is definitely business out there, but there's no low hanging fruit, and you got to work hard to get it. So one of the biggest pain points I'm seeing is clients have recruited people over the last few years who have just walked in, job, candidate, ding, ding. And of course now it's harder and it's more competitive. They're having to pick up the phone, they're having to really build relationships. And that is either a lost art and skill of people that have been in recruitment for some time, who never really loved the BD side, or the people that they've hired more recently have never really crafted that skill. So that's the thing that comes up again and again and again, is that we've, I guess the industry, when it's good, what's happened is they've become very behind a computer, and it's all been done by email, and it's easy. And now clients, there's no differentiation, and therefore that relationship building and getting out in front of clients. And I was in a session not that long ago with really quite established recruiters, and asking about how many client meetings that they have a week, and the number was just so small. And they rightly or wrongly, and maybe it's because I'm old school, they were, Teams meetings was a meeting, and it's like, it's not. So yes, it is a meeting, but have you ever really met that client? So I think that would be the biggest thing, is that the real need for proper business development strategies has never ever been so required as now. So that's certainly one area.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the pace of the market change last year was huge. You saw variations across a month you'd normally see across quarters and half years. And there was almost this sort of race to hire, and actually the people, as you say, just they didn't need to do that business development. So effectively you've got people sat who haven't got the skills to do it. It's classic, go and shout at people to do more business development, but have you trained them? Have you taken them through that? And yeah, we've lived in a very strange cycle this 3 years. I mean, I'd probably call now a market a normal market. It's an equilibrium that, as you say, it was never easy when I'm sure we used to do it, but and there wasn't a lot of low hanging fruit, but there was always business if you were prepared to work hard. And I feel those people who are prepared to work hard and smart and do a good job, will get rewarded.
Yeah, definitely. And things like really understanding what your value proposition is, what differentiates you in the market, is all those, what seemingly feels really basic, but it is those basic things that are within those gaps, which when the market is tougher and tighter, that's going to be the difference between you potentially winning the business exclusively, or if it has to be with other agencies. So yeah, I think there was definitely plenty of work out there, and I was at a couple of meetings and conferences last week, and the future landscape of businesses feels really positive. The incremental growth they're looking for next year is realistic, and it's really positive. So but I think it's more about getting more out of what you've got necessarily than adding massive headcount to the current teams. Definitely is a theme that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think the macroeconomic data is still relatively strong in terms of the actual vacancies are out there. So there are still jobs available for people to fill. Probably the issue is a skill shortage of available people to fill those jobs. The only thing I'd just sort of caution, and from a very UK perspective, is that starting to drop now. So we don't want to see this sort of this sort of perfect storm roll in. But if we do, the market will adjust. It'll be like .com crash, credit crunch crash, oil price crash. I think sort of been here, seen it, and it always comes back. It always drops, it always comes back. And I think the companies that have done the best in recent times have been the ones just able to ride the wave. There's been great waves, bad waves. They've just, just navigated it quite nicely and quite smoothly.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to what we were saying earlier about really looking after your people, and even when things are tight, investing in them, making sure that the culture's somewhere that they want to stay, making sure that they're developing and they're being stretched, and they feel that they the career path might not be as quick in a slower market, but people want personal growth, not necessarily always upward trajectory in their career. So I would agree. I think the companies that have done really well have really focused on that and haven't gone hot and cold on subjects. So things like DEI, obviously had a rightly priority put on sort of post-COVID, but lots of companies I can now see that agenda, because money's tight and the market's tougher, they're sort of dropping some of those topics. And I don't know if I was how I would feel if something so prevalent and so important is then dropped as a subject, how I would then feel about that company. So I think it's about the consistency of commitment on some of those key topics, which are why people join, but also why people stay, and also why they might leave.
So if I'm building a business, if I'm scaling up, or if I'm an enterprise business, why should I hire you? What are you going to bring to my organization?
So here comes my value proposition. So I've got to practice what I preach. So I think what is unique, for want of a better phrase, is I have been a leader for the best part of 27 years, and I've delivered leadership training for probably 20 of those years. So I've also worked corporate, in a corporate world, and then my experience more recently has obviously been in those startup scale up. So I feel that one of the differentiating factors I've got is I've got sort of a perspective from lots of different ways. So I've sat in leadership training and sales training that has been brilliant and not so good, relevant or completely on point. So the view I have, and my approach to putting together leadership training or sales training or coaching or whatever it is, comes from quite a different perspective. So instead of coming from these are my 12 different subjects, my topics, this is my proposal, you'll get these topics over this sort of timeline. So I go in on a co-design approach. So I meet the leadership, and through design thinking, so where you've got an ideas and problem solving workshop on really identifying what do they want as a business out of whatever it is that they're looking for, and then we co-design through that facilitation of that workshop what are the priorities, what are the topics, what's most important for them, and the priorities from that. So when the training is then delivered, they already know me. So they don't just rock up and go, oh, who's this person that's just turned up? So I also understand the culture. I've got to understand a bit more about the people, but more importantly, exactly what are the topics that are most important, the style and the content, and how that's delivered, because that should be different. And I tailor make it to the organization rather than it being a sort of a cookie cutter option. So something a bit different.
Something a bit different is our RecWired Plus platform. Now, I know you've been one of the few to have a sneak peek at it. So what did you think?
I think it's brilliant. I was thinking when Charlotte was taking me through it, I was thinking this would have been so good. I've worked with LMSs in the past, but they're not, and you can import recruitment orientated content into your LMS, but to have something which is on day one, maybe you've come from recruitment, maybe you haven't, where you've got a self-paced ability of going, oh, right, I've got to do reference calls on Thursday. Like, how do you even do that? My manager's not here. Oh, and you've got a little 5-minute take, and it could be a video or, you know, something that you read. I think it's bite size, and for those who are really interested in self-learning, I think it can be an addition, a fantastic addition to training that they will be receiving anyway from that desk coaching or one-to-ones or you know, actual workshops. Or if they don't have any of that, then it would be a brilliant option for people. So I thought it was excellent, really innovative, and definitely something that has got a place in the market.
Yeah, we think so. When Dan Alexander pitched us the idea, and we couldn't have done it without him, and we couldn't have done it without Dom, who built the platform. For us, it was like, yeah, there really is a gap in the market here, and we can certainly do that. And I think you're going to put a little bit of content on us, just on there for us as well, just to help us out on that, and also as well, people can then see what you can bring to that. So yeah, we're very excited about the launch. We're going to do an offer for the membership to get them all to sign up before the end of the year, and then goes into full production next year, which, you know, we're excited about. And again, it's something new for us as well. I've learned so much in the past few months just around you know, how to build the product, how to shape it, how to get feedback, and you know, I've not been hugely involved other than sort of the background and the commercials, but yeah, this is our excited phase right now.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good, definitely something. Yeah, I think working with a lot of sort of startups, and you know, that I suppose probably from 8 to 80 people. I mean, I don't know what your core demographic that you're after, but the companies I speak to within that segment, you know, they don't have an L&D person on site. They don't have an LMS. So kind of what are the other options? You know, that you know, your option, I think, is a fantastic consideration for that sort of size business.
Yeah, well, we hope so. Thanks for your kind feedback. And we're getting that feedback when we're showing other people as well. It worries me because that's the imposter syndrome. Everyone's just being nice, and you know, but yeah, we're very pleased. So I mean, we're really glad that we got introduced, and we got introduced through the wider network. And you know, Delta phoned me up and said, "You've got to speak to this lady. She's been at Robert Half. She's good. You know, people are really going to buy into her." And then when we met in Birmingham, I completely got it. And you know, I think you're really going to help out our network members to grow. So if people do want to get hold of you, we'll put the link. They can book in an intro via our website, and you know, we'll facilitate that for you. And yeah, we're looking forward to working with you both, not only in the groups with our members, but also on the RecWired Plus platform as well. So thanks so much for your time, Victoria.
Not at all. Thank you very much.
All right, catch up soon.
Okay, thanks, Andy.